Rockfin, let's go. Let's do it. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And you can catch me here Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And welcome, guys. Welcome. Thank you so much. I do see Nico is here. Nico, whenever you're ready, if you just give me a thumbs up. All right, here we go. What's up, Nico?
What's up, Sabs? How you doing?
I am doing great. All right, guys, my special guest tonight is Niko House. He's a commentator, an activist, a journalist, and much, much more. Niko, welcome back. It's been a minute.
It has. It really has. But, you know, I see you keeping busy. I see you've been definitely keeping busy. I'm glad to see it.
No, it's been a lot of things going on so far. It's been a lot of things happening this year.
But you look about 5 years younger. You look about 5 years younger. So apparently he's keeping you young too. So that's good.
Oh, Nico, flattery will get you everywhere.
Black don't crack. Look, some stereotypes are true, and black don't crack. So it is what it is.
All right. So I've been wanting to talk to you about this for quite some time. Because we are entering the election season again, I think it's important to go back and remind people what the DNC said after Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential run, because now we have Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. primary challenging Joe Biden. I think you and I know they're not going to be fair towards those candidates.
Of course, it's expected. Yeah, not only not fair, like don't get me wrong. I definitely can appreciate the message that RFK is going to bring in like a similar fashion that I appreciated Tulsi, but like it is probably even more cemented at this point. They are not going to allow either of them to even have close to a chance, especially when Marianne Williamson keeps unnecessarily shooting herself in the foot. So there's that. So, you know, I just don't, it's not going to happen. You know, not that they're not worthy candidates, it's just not going to happen.
That's right. So I want to remind people what happened after the 2016 election. Court concedes DNC had the right to rig the primaries against Bernie Sanders. So this is like, it's the elephant in the room, right, Nico? It's the fact that we have to be realistic here when we talk about people who are primary challenging someone in the Democratic Party, and those people are running on any type of progressive message whatsoever. If we go back, we have to remember when you look at a state like West Virginia, for example, where Bernie Sanders won every county in West Virginia. And at the end, the superdelegates still decided to give it to Hillary Clinton. And this is a challenge that I think anyone who's trying to do this progressive strategy through the Democratic Party, they are constantly going to run into this challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that, right? So first of all, the Observer, along with a lot of other news articles, actually purposely mischaracterized the results of that case. The courts never concluded that they have the right to rig their primary. That's actually not what was said. In fact, Judge Locke made it very clear, even though that he dismissed the case on jurisdictional issues primarily. But he actually said in his final opinion that he does not recognize the trivialization of the DNC's charter, because remember, their main argument was that basically they didn't have to adhere to their charter. It was just kind of like suggestions rather than rules. And he said that he does not recognize the trivialization of their charter. But he said that it seems to be more so an issue of jurisdiction than anything else. Now, the superdelegate issue has not been resolved, exactly like you said. But there's even more than that. The fact that corporations, corporate entities, if you will, private entities, still are allowed to have control over voting machines that you or I have no access to without getting an audit, right? And what people don't know about these audits and don't seem to understand about these audits, and I told people the same thing about the Trump situation this past election in 2020. I said, it doesn't matter really whether or not you believe Trump won or whether or not you thought Joe Biden won. The problem is that we were really never allowed to find out. Everybody says, oh, Trump's cases were thrown out. They weren't thrown out. They say they were thrown out and therefore they weren't legitimate. We don't know if they're legitimate because the federal positions of the U.S. attorney and federal judges are political. They're appointed positions. And so effectively, for them to have tried that case, they would have been challenging their next boss. People don't know. Bill Clinton fired a bunch of U.S. attorneys and federal judges that wouldn't go along with his cabal in the 90s when he was rigging the ATF, rigging the DEA, normalizing private prisons, etc. Like, that's a thing. There are people who wouldn't even come out and testify about some of the stuff that the Clintons did because that's how entrenched those judges have been in this system. And those are political positions. And so if you're a progressive and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go get an audit. I have the money. We have the money to do it. We raised it. We did everything right. If anybody who's been a lawyer knows, unfortunately, you can do everything right, but this court system, once it gets to a certain point, is extremely political, and we have yet to deal with that in any realistic way.
That's right. So it says here, in June 2016, a class action lawsuit was filed against the Democratic National Committee and former DNC chair Debbie Weiserman Schultz. I don't want people to forget about her for violating the DNC charter by rigging the Democratic presidential primaries for Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders. And so Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid admitted in July 2016, everybody knew that this was not a fair deal, yet they allowed it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Remember, Elizabeth Warren admitted it. Tom Perez admitted it. I mean, the list goes on. They all knew. Well, I mean, and to be real, what pissed me off probably more than anything else is that Bernie knew he got cheated and didn't do anything about it.
Yep.
Right? So there's that part. There is so for example, Marianne Williamson, we heard her talk a lot about how she was mistreated by the DNC last year. She was saying that she was being treated better by her Republican colleagues than Democratic colleagues. And yet, once the election concluded and she was still trying to maintain that Democratic clout, we saw her constantly throwing praise on Joe Biden, and now she's going to turn around and pretend as if she all of a sudden disagrees with all of his policies, when she kept saying that he was leaps and bounds better than Trump. And I mean, if we want to be factually correct, he has not been better than Trump, which is saying a lot because it actually wouldn't have been that difficult. It really wouldn't have. You just have to not start a new war and maybe not send the entire world's economy into a spiraling depression. But wasn't hard easy enough for Joe Biden. So it's not just the fact that we get cheated. It's the fact that some of the people who were cheated outside of maybe Tulsi, they pretend like it never happened.
Yep.
And they raise money from poor people. And they spend that money again, knowing that they have done nothing effective to change this corrupt system, that they want us to go and vote again like we didn't just see what happened the last two elections.
They never even bring it up. And this is the elephant in the room. Like, I'm sorry. I do know some people are very hopeful about Marianne or RFK Jr. I told people this before. I would support RFK Jr. if he ran as an independent, because I agree with him on a lot of the policies. Like, he's anti-war. I'm down with that kind of thing. But we have to address this particular issue. We have to address the super delegates issue. See, for the Republican Party, for people who are not aware, they don't have super delegates.
Yeah. Like, and or if they do, they do, but it's like a weird, like basically the super delegates don't have anywhere near the power. Basically, they have them, but it's nothing like what the Democratic Party is, because they're just it's a party of I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's a bunch of wolves, and once they find their quote unquote alpha, they just whatever, you won, fair and square, it is what it is. They cheated Ron Paul before, but they didn't use super delegates to do it. They reduced his TV time, and they did everything they could that was in their power to reduce the amount of exposure he got. But they didn't literally take a state from him.
Right.
That's different territory that we're in.
But how do you feel about the fact that Bernie Sanders doesn't even call this out? Like when Bernie ran in 2020, he didn't call this out. I was like, okay, maybe he's not going to say anything because he doesn't want to hurt his chances in this election for 2020.
It's weird to me because I don't understand people. Yeah, so even we know why he didn't say anything after. He got a very powerful position in the Senate where he's done absolutely nothing with it. That's what happened after. But people would ask me, or people would tell me back during the 2020 election, why would you support Bernie Tulsi instead of Bernie? Even though I was very clear, I'm like, well, if any of them win, I really don't care. Like, that's fine. Now I'm glad Bernie didn't win because apparently he was just, walk in lockstep with the Democratic Party. But I would say, well, they said Bernie had such a great chance, right? He had so much of a better chance to win. And I said, no, he doesn't. He has the exact same amount of opportunity as Tulsi does. I don't care what the numbers say. They're like, what do you mean? I said, I have a question. Did the Democratic Party cheat last time? Everybody knows the answer is yes. Have we addressed that? No. Did Bernie address it? No. So they have the exact same amount of chances to win, which is effectively zero. I mean, if I'm being real. But the only difference is he's taking hundreds of millions of dollars from poor people and not calling the issue out. Tulsi, the reason I got behind her was because even though her chances were obviously slim to none, that was no different than Bernie, except for she introduced the Secure America's Elections Act. She introduced an amendment to bring parity back to media and honesty back to media and to hold people accountable in that regard. She challenged the Democratic Party. She told the truth about the wars that were happening. Like, she brought up consistently the DNC fraud lawsuit. Tulsi was the first and only congressman to talk to me. She called me whenever the lawsuit first started to figure out what was going on. And immediately after that is when she started putting together the Secure America's Elections Act. Like, it was a no-brainer for me because I knew, once again, we've never substantively addressed the problems that led us to even having to deal with 2020. And yet, and I'd say the same thing, by the way, to Republicans. I got all these people that I know that are Trump supporters. I'm like, okay, cool, man, more power to you. So anyway, what did he do about that? The system that just screwed him, that y'all swear he got cheated by? Anything been done? Have y'all addressed these voting machines? Have y'all addressed the fact that y'all weren't allowed to audit last time? And yet you probably had a very legitimate case, because I was watching the election all night like everybody else, and it did look a little bit suspect. And some of these cases are coming out, and they're favoring Trump in places like Arizona and in some parts of Georgia that nobody knows about. And none of their media will talk about it because there's a reality that they can get demonetized. And a lot of them people are just college chasers, just like we see in the Bernie movement, right? So I keep telling them, like, they're like, man, but Trump, even if he gets arrested, he's going to be more popular than ever, which I believe effectively is true. I think that there are more people willing to vote for Trump than ever before. But Trump increased his voting demographic amongst every single base except for white males. He was the most popular incumbent in history, and he got screwed. And it hasn't been resolved. So I'm like, I tell y'all that people think that I'm like, oh, like you're a grifter. I'm like, no, I say the same thing to people. It's just you don't pay attention when I say it to the Trump people because you ignore those tweets, right? Or you only pay attention when I'm calling your people out because you don't want to hear shit. you don't want to face facts. It's like they don't want to face facts. But as a person who literally had his life threatened because of this lawsuit, they will do any and everything they can to make sure that this system does not change. Because at the end of the day, it's almost like the national debt, right? Or the petrodollar or whatever. They always say we have a sovereign currency. They say, oh, we just can print out money how we want to. I said, no, that's not true. We at least have to look like we have money. You know what I mean? We got to pretend like, oh, yeah, man, we got to make sure it looks like we have some incoming revenue, or else the sham falls apart. It has to look as if, that's why you see all these AOCs and Kamala and Joe Biden, they have a lot of astroturfed accounts. because they have to look popular, right? We caught Kamala buying followers during the election. There was a bunch of segments about it. Everybody just kind of forgot it happened. She was not popular. Obviously, Joe Biden was the easiest target. It was very apparent every single debate. And then also we're supposed to be convinced that Biden was the most popular, which is insane to me. And then on top of that, the woman who couldn't even get enough money to make it to the election was the pick for VP because she was supposed to bring more people in that she somehow could never bring herself.
Yep.
That lets you know how corrupt the system is because they already knew what the result would be, so they weren't worried about Kamala hurting them. They weren't worried about Joe Biden literally not being able to form words, hurting them.
No, it's 100% true. For people who aren't aware, like Nico worked on Bernie's first campaign in North Carolina. And you organized.
I was a state director for North Carolina for the majority of the campaign for the last month.
Right. So you organized a lot of people. And so you saw the potential that the Bernie movement had, even the first time. A lot of people bring up 2020, but the first one, which I consider to be the more revolutionary campaign that he had. Yeah, I thought that was.
There were so many people that would tell me, on the side, mostly like, man, it doesn't feel the same. The campaign doesn't feel the same. Because it was specifically actually when we were in LA. And Bernie, he had that massive rally. And like a bunch of superstars came out, and like Sarah Silverman, backtracked and was on his jock all this, and I was like, man, this is like a rock concert. This is like, Public Enemy came out there. Like it was, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that many people got behind it. But I hate to compare it to like your favorite indie rock band or rapper, but it felt like, oh man, when I discovered this guy, this is like when the music was pure. Basically, and you could see it going mainstream, and just that's how it always goes whenever anything goes mainstream, right? The quality is reduced significantly, even though it may make more money. And what we saw in the quality of the Bernie movement was that even though they were making more money, and people unfortunately were making more money off of him, it wasn't the same. Like it just wasn't the same. And I'm like, there's even less of a likelihood that Bernie actually calls out the cheating. Because now he has the ability to wield this movement and get whatever he wants. And at the end of the day, Bernie has much more of an ego than people are willing to admit. Like Bernie's an old white man. I don't give a damn about how he could be as kind and as generous and talk the talk all he wants to, but I know all the things that he did to gain power in Vermont, like crushing independent candidates on behalf of the Democratic Party, which people aren't aware of, or allowing military contractors to build planes in Vermont because he knows that he needs that money to keep his jobs instead of say, hey guys, I can't keep these jobs specifically because it's against everything that I stand for when I ran on. And I hope that you all understand it. And if they don't, so be it. He likes the titles. Don't get it twisted. It's almost as if him being that quote unquote independent guy, that fulfills the desires of his ego as well. Like he loves being known as that, but but in practice you're not. You vote with the Democratic Party almost 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. So I love what I see, RBN doing. Honestly, specifically Rome. This guy is got like the damn Energizer bunny. This man, doing everything from getting in the streets and giving away pizzas to literally building libraries. We need direct action. We need mutual aid. I feel like the reason that we're so dependent on these elections now is largely because we have this belief that we cannot be saved without the government.
Yep.
And Black people should know by now, the government is not our friend at all. Not even a little bit. Not even kind of. We should have learned that from the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers knew that. They knew the government was not their friend. They knew the government wasn't really going to try to help out their community. That's why they decided to help out the people in the community themselves. And we got away from that as a society, and people embraced neoliberalism and started to think this is the answer, just to vote for someone. And I always ask people, I'm like, would MLK tell you to do that? Would Malcolm X tell you that? What did Malcolm X say about liberals? Specifically, yeah, he was right on point. And like I always talk about Fred Hampton because I mean you talking about a 21-year-old Black Panther who, by the way, at least in the history books of the South, we learned about the Black Panthers, but we learned about Huey P. Newton and Angela Davis. That's basically where it stopped. They never even bring up Fred Hampton, at least not when I was in high school, which is bizarre because like obviously when I got to about I think in my first year of college maybe I found out I was like hold up, this 21-year-old was a co-founder of the Black Panthers.
Yep.
And mind you, he was 21 when he died. That wasn't when he founded the Black Panthers. And when this man was murdered. He was murdered and other people were thrown in jail and other people were killed and because they were giving food. They were building communities. They were training people to use weapons. Nobody's child went unattended or uncared for when others went to work. Like everybody ate. If you came looking for food, if you came looking for house, they even had communes, if I'm not mistaken, that people lived in groups like hostels. So there was never a situation in which you did not have the basic necessities. And this was being done in Black communities where redlining was keeping everybody from owning property that was worth anything. And they still were able to do this. So imagine with, like, obviously we're in tough times right now, but we do, however, have more access to resources and a network that we can flip and turn into resources for other people. But we don't do that because some people are lazy, some people honestly are just tired, right? There's that. I get it. I'm exhausted. I had to take damn near a year off because I was just so beat up from the last 5-6 years. And I understand that. But like, y'all don't think Rome tired? I don't know. Rome might not be tired. Rome got all damn. But okay, bad example. But no, in all seriousness, it's like, yeah, actually he did a video the other day literally saying like he needs help.
Yeah.
Which is crazy for Rome to even say something like that. Because like, go ahead.
But that's a big part of the problem. Like, people don't really understand that unless you've done it. If you've never canvassed for a politician, if you never knocked on doors, if you never phone banked, if you never like participated in organizing to help someone get elected, it's hard work. And then on top of that,
get home feeling like you just got done running 5 miles. I promise you, it was exhausting. Yes.
And people need to understand too, just to show you how corrupt the system is. Debbie Weiserman Schultz. Okay, so she was a part of all this, all the DNC like rigging against Bernie Sanders. She was a part of all of this. Debbie Weiserman Schultz is still in Congress. She still has a seat.
Yeah, she was fired. She was fired from her job as a DNC chairwoman because she was caught.
And she's still a politician. She's still allowed to be there as a politician. She was actually on the committee for the Twitter files when Matt Taibbi went to the hearing. And I'm like, how is she going to question someone else's integrity? And she was, on DNC chair, and she was caught trying to rig, the primary against Bernie Sanders. So it's just, the system is very corrupt, and it makes me frustrated when people say, so are you guys just telling people not to do anything? It's like,
nobody says that.
They totally look over. Like, we tell people do mutual aid, do direct action. They don't even want to say those words because to them, that means do nothing.
Yeah, which is weird, right? It's like, so somebody says, I'm hungry. And I'm like, oh, well, we have some noodles in the cabinet. And somebody's like, oh, so you just don't want me to eat? Hold on, no, I just told you we have food in the cabinet. Like, I know it isn't exactly what you want, but it'll sustain you until we get. Oh, so really, if you don't want me to eat, then just say that. Mm-hmm. No, I'm telling you, I have that is my only option right now. Otherwise, you're going to starve. We can worry about getting steak after, but otherwise, you're going to starve. You don't eat these noodles. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just not going to eat. You know what? I'm just not going to eat. It's like they literally know at this point, voting will not save them. They know. I don't give it. Like, we have the benefit of hindsight now. We have the benefit of hindsight and technology. And social media has been keeping track of all of this now. And although they try to erase voices like mine, they try to erase Julian Assange. People forget Julian Assange was a large reason. That's why Debbie Weiserman Schultz got fired, because WikiLeaks dropped and confirmed damn near everything. Mm-hmm. So that's no coincidence that it was soon after that, within a year or so, Julian Assange was dragged out of that embassy. Like, we have so many people being silenced and smeared and attacked. I mean, hell, even people don't remember TYT completely and totally dismissed the lawsuit, they're like, oh, it's frivolous. They didn't even read it. They didn't even read it. They didn't read anything about it. They even had at the time a journalist who was covering the lawsuit. They wouldn't even interview him about it. So there's a reason that they work so hard, because they don't want you to know, like, yeah, they can cheat, or at least they feel they can cheat because they just got away with it. They don't want you to know that this shit is so deep that we were sent to the Supreme Court for the appeals case, right? And it just waited and waited. We're like, what the hell is taking so long? And I was like, fuck, I know exactly what's taking so long. I'm like, they're waiting for Joe Biden to get the nomination because they're going to give it to the one Republican who owes their career to Joe Biden, which is Clarence Thomas. And guess who gets the case as soon as Joe Biden wins his primary? Clarence Thomas. And so he's going to make sure that Joe Biden's taken care of, because obviously it would look very negative for his campaign if the DNC fraud lawsuit gets through and we're able to shine a light in the discovery phase of the case on everything the DNC had done and everything that they had said.
So Clarence Thomas got the case for the DNC fraud lawsuit?
Out of all the Republicans. Out of all the Republicans in the Supreme Court, yes. He was the deciding factor on whether or not it would be heard by the Supreme Court. And this man literally didn't even read it. He just, nope, sorry.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. That's interesting. See, I didn't know that part about the story, but Roger had a question here. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Didn't the history of the super delegates come out due to McGovern winning the nomination against Nixon, who Dems threw under the bus? Carter was in on it, promised a 1976 run. I didn't know about that.
I heard about that prior. Actually, I want to say my friend Terry Bain actually talks about this on one of our shows. I mean, yeah, they because there was a couple situations where the Democrats almost lost control, right? The one prior to that would have been Henry Wallace, right? They just had to straight up cheat for that one, which I guess isn't that crazy for Democrats, but like it's terrifying to me what Democrats will do to maintain power and authority and control. People always ask me, well, why don't you go hard on the Republicans? Which actually I do. People don't. People don't really see. They don't see it unless that's all you're doing. They don't see it when you criticize the other side. They only see it when you criticize their own side because it's projection. They feel guilty. They're like, damn, you don't call me out like that, bro. Yeah, I see it, but shit, we're all supposed to be ignoring it. I thought we all had kind of disagreement that we just weren't going to talk about the obvious shit. Like, no, I talk about everything. And I'm not going to change that. But we see the Democrats are the ones who keep telling me they care so much about black people. Republicans don't pretend to care about black people. Republicans pretend to care about tokens. I personally have conservative friends who are kind of like, they don't really care if black or white. They literally do not care. To a fault sometimes, but that's just who they are as people because that's how they were raised. But Republicans as a party, they don't give a damn about us. They make it very clear. They don't give a damn about no kind of marginalized, including poor people, right? They make that very, very clear. Democrats are the ones who are pretending to have empathy. Democrats are the ones who are pretending that they care, raising a bunch of money for it, getting in power, and then ultimately doing more damage than Republicans. Yeah, that's what happens.
This piece here, I think, is really crucial too. It says the court continued, for their part, the DNC and Weiserman Schultz have characterized the DNC's charter promise of impartiality and even-handedness as a mere political promise, political rhetoric that is not enforceable in federal courts. The court does not accept this trivialization of the DNC's governing principles. While it may be true in the abstract that the DNC has the right to have its delegates go into back rooms like they used to and smoke cigars and pick the candidate that way, the DNC, through its charter, has committed itself to a higher principle. This piece right here, go into back rooms and pick the candidate. And that's why for me,
that's what the attorney argued, Bruce Spiva, in the dismissal hearing. He said that those exact words. Just want to clarify that for people.
Yeah, so this is the point. I just want to make this very clear to people, because sometimes people say we're being negative if we're like you should at least try to support, these candidates who are trying to get Joe Biden out. It's not even so much just necessarily about the candidates. It's the system that they're going into. And people have to be willing to acknowledge the fact that the DNC is going to rig it against you. And I feel
like, can we say,
People
can
just
we say, Sabby, why don't we gotta try to get Joe Biden out? Like, people don't understand. Like, I feel like I'm like crazy sometimes, Sab. I really do. I'm like, hold on. Y'all think that this man actually won in the primary? Like, legitimately. And obviously, so a lot of people like, probably not, at least, right? At least not the neoliberals wouldn't say that, but everybody else would. Like, okay, so if he didn't win legitimately last time, why would that change anything this time? And why are we pretending? Like, why are we? Because if you want to support the candidate, even if you want to get out and vote, just for accountability purposes, which I actually encourage. I'm like, okay, be accountable. That way, if you know, because that's what happened with Tim Canova. People went out and voted for Tim Canova. He knew it was going to be rigged, and he used it to his advantage and challenged the courts. And now, what's her name? Brenda Snipes got fired because of it. We were vigilant about it. But that's not what people were asking for. You know what I'm saying? They want you to go spend money, spend time, spend resources. And I saw somebody said that y'all could do both under one of the RBN posts, and the channel itself, RBN channel, was like, no, motherfucker, we don't got the resources for that shit no more. That's over. That shit's dead.
The problem you run into with the both, we'll use the recent example of Workers' Strike Back. Mm-hmm. On the same day that Workers' Strike Back launched, which they had announced this months ahead of time, Marianne Williamson gave her presidential campaign announcement speech the same day. And what I've seen is that when you try to do those two together, right, the resources that you should be putting towards unionizing, direct action, mutual aid, they end up going to the electoral piece.
Imagine how many people, like, if we had, like, say if we had taken the literally hundreds of millions of dollars that was given to Bernie, and we had set up, because even before we knew the pandemic was going to be here, let's just say we took that and invested in mutual aid in 2019. And we set up all these different stations around the country to make sure that there was emergency food, there was emergency housing, there were trainings, like classes to grow gardens, things like that. Imagine how many people wouldn't have been struggling during the pandemic if all those things had been pre-set up.
Mm-hmm.
Like
we could have built clinics, Nico.
Yeah. You feel me? We could have bought medicine from out the country. I mean, I know a lot of people we had people who literally brought medicine from Mexico because they had the resources to get there. And imagine if we could send a convoy to Mexico. Like, yeah, people say, well, that's difficult. I'm like, no, it wasn't difficult because guess what Bernie could have did? Bernie could have said, one of them text messages that he'd be sending out to everybody, can you spare me $26, what the fuck it is? Yo, can we raise $100 million for mutual aid?
Yep.
As quickly as we raise it for my campaign, can we do the same thing for mutual aid? How many people do you think would have donated? all of his supporters. Absolutely. I would have like, go ahead, bro. You can send me another. Let me know whenever you want to do this shit again. Let me know, and I'm gonna send more money. Matter of fact, let me know where I can volunteer. How many? He had tens of thousands of volunteers. Hey, we're setting up these mutual aid banks. Can you volunteer at this, just like you did for my campaign? Only for a couple hours a week, and we could change the world. We could change the country.
Yep.
He did not do that. In fact, all these people with these platforms, but TYT obviously had the ability to bring attention to what happened to Bernie. They chose not to. That wasn't by coincidence. Like Crystal and Sagar with their show, like there were so many people who have the power to not only bring attention to what happened negatively, obviously, but take the energy that they literally profited to the tune of millions from, in some cases, and redirect that into positive action so that all of that wasn't for a loss. But we're now in debt as a movement. We are indebted. We don't have the resources anymore. People are done. They're tired. So now everybody they're very skeptical. They're very suspicious, as they should be. And the new people who do have the resources that are excited, those resources are now about to be sucked up again by Marianne Williamson and obviously probably Joe Biden. And we're seeing our whole being dug deeper. That is one thing like I've just never been able to forgive Bernie for. Like, you could have turned around and taken your movement and literally set the country up for success in a way that we have never seen really since the Black Panther. He could have did what the Black Panthers started and help people build this infrastructure and unite people. Like, hey, you know, we know it just all you have to do is like, we know the election wasn't fair. That's all we had to say. You don't have to go into details. We know the election wasn't fair, but that doesn't mean that it was all for naught. Let's take the energy and let's do this, and this. And I'll go to each thing, and I'll go personally to volunteer here. And you can take pictures with me. You can do this, X, Y, and Z. I'll get these other Congress people or these other celebrities, etc., to come and go to these different. Like, there are so many ways that we could have weaponized that movement for good, and we completely lost all of the energy. And it's mostly his fault. Almost completely.
Also, too, not even just that, but you're right. Like, we had the numbers. When people say we should have had a mass movement, they say we had the numbers. We had the numbers where Bernie could have taken that movement and say, okay, we need to push back, we need to fight back. But Bernie Sanders was never going to do that, because in the beginning, they have to pledge. They have to sign a pledge.
Well, that was for 2020.
Right.
That wasn't for 2016, but that was because of 2016 that they signed that pledge in 2020.
There you go, that they'll support the Democrat nominee, right? But here's the thing. When Jesse Ventura came on, Jesse Ventura said he asked Bernie Sanders early on when he announced his 2016 run, if you lose to Hillary Clinton, would you be willing to build a third party movement with me? And Jesse Ventura said that Bernie Sanders said, no, I will be supporting Hillary Clinton. So see, here's the thing. If I knew that back then, I would have never donated money to Bernie Sanders. I would have never done it, because then he took that energy and then he told everybody, okay, we got to go support Hillary Clinton. Then he did it twice.
He poured water into a volcano. He poured water into a volcano, literally. He was like, oh, I'm going to put out this. Oh, the water's gone. Shit. Like, bro, it's Hillary Clinton. We were not going to her. After we all found out, we found out they cheated him, and she was the culprit, obviously. And everybody was doing it on behalf of her. And then Bernie was like, yeah, no, she literally screwed all of us. Because that's the way that Trump won. Bernie wins, Trump doesn't win. That's for sure. Think about how many people that we know that were Bernie supporters that are now vehemently supporting Trump to this day. Because in their mind, they're like, shit, he ain't perfect. Because Bernie, you make the same claim about Bernie. He's not perfect. But at least he fucking fought more than Bernie did. He's like, shit, at least he pushed back. At least he did it. At least he made me feel like I was seen. That's how a lot of people feel. Bernie, he abandoned, like, that's the best word I could use to think, like I think up to you, excuse me. He abandoned us. And it's everybody talks about, I don't give a damn about the book deal and all that. Like, I don't think he really cared that much about the money, despite what some people say. I said, but he does care about the clout. He wants to go down in history as this guy that he, apparently isn't. But he's okay with being in history book says, man, this guy almost did something great, as long as he was mentioned. And he wants to be known as independent.
But the thing is, too, he never mentions this, Nico. As many people that have interviewed Bernie Sanders, even when Bernie Sanders came on to Crystal Kyle and Friends and told Kyle, basically said he wouldn't do it if Kyle was president. Okay. So this is how politicians work, because you spend all those years telling people to support Bernie Sanders' campaign, praising Bernie Sanders. Then the opportunity comes for Bernie Sanders to do the interview on the show. And Bernie Sanders says, I won't do it, or I will do it with Crystal, but not if Kyle is there.
Which is weird.
all those years.
Because Kyle gave him a softball ass interview before.
But the thing is that there was criticism after 2020. There was some criticism on Secular Talk about Bernie Sanders.
No, of course. I remember.
Why.
But my thing was though, like, so basically you're asserting that like a very few, very, very little criticism that Kyle gave Bernie, like that was too much. But you know that like Chris is going to do whatever the hell you tell her to, and therefore you're okay with being everybody. Like that's like if Kyle is too much for you, Bernie, that you're not a serious candidate and you're extremely disingenuous, and you are worried that your disingenuity will be called out.
But my thing is too, if you get the opportunity and you're in, indie media, you get the opportunity to interview Bernie Sanders, you should bring up the DNC fraud lawsuit. Bernie Sanders, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about what Debbie Weiserman Schultz did? How do you feel? Nobody asked him about this. He doesn't talk about it. Bernie Sanders isn't even willing to criticize the media, the way that they treated him when he ran for president, how they smeared him. He's not willing to push back on that. He didn't push back on the way that Hillary Clinton smeared him and continues to smear him
Till this day.
Till this
day, bro. Like, this man has done everything. It makes you think like this man Bernie go to therapy, so I guess it's too late for that. But like, bro, like it's like he takes pleasure in getting ridiculed and attacked. And like Elizabeth Warren literally lied on him. Like lied.
Yep.
Like got caught lying in real time. And it's okay. That's just Liz.
Like, we're all just supposed to forget that Elizabeth Warren called him sexist or misogynist and said, like, during the 2020 debates, I'm like, oh, so that don't matter anymore. You guys are friends? You're not going to correct that, Bernie?
But, you know, when you're all thespians in the grand theater of politics, I guess you just know it when the actor's acting. I got to get out of here soon, though, in like 5 minutes. So just want to let you know.
All right. Oh, yeah. I'm looking at the time. But before you go, Nico, tell everybody, like, what are you working on now? And why did you move to Brazil?
Well, I mean, Brazil's awesome. But so I actually am here to kind of check out the developments of what takes place after now that Lula's back in power. Given the status of the U.S. dollar in the United States and the world in general, and then the up-and-coming BRICS empire, if you will, because that shit is happening. I don't know if people have been paying attention, but like it is real. The dollar has actually lost value here a little. It goes up and down, but like it actually lost by, I want to say 15 to 20% of its value over the last 3 weeks because of that deal with China that Brazil had. And then when Lula went to China recently, like 3 days ago, like it dropped by like another 10 to 15 cents. There is going to be hopefully a lot of positive outcomes here for Brazilians, and this is the best. I mean, out of all the BRICS nations, like this is the only language I speak. So, so I wanted to cover it, and I wanted to be on the ground for it. I really wanted to get a feel for how Brazilians feel, or like somebody from a BRICS country actually feels about what's taking place, and seeing the actual impact. And also, like, I just did not want to be in the U.S. anymore, to be honest with you. Like, it just happened to be I love Brazil at the same time, but I had already been looking at moving to Mexico potentially. Like, it just, the U.S. is just like, I'm like, at the end of the day, like, I have a family that I have to take care of. I'm trying to figure out where my mom will retire. My mom's exhausted. She's ready to, like, and she knows, like, at the rate it's looking right now, but my mom was finally actually ready to retire. We know how this game goes. Unfortunately, her 401k is going to be worth shit because the market is going to be destroyed, and then she's going to have to work longer. So it's really the combination of work stuff and also just looking for alternatives to help my family and getting, and hopefully actually just, I try to do whatever I can to just help people out here, man. You know, I definitely got some of that American guilt going on. I definitely do. Because I'm fully aware that the lack of privilege that they have is directly due to the fact that we stopped them from having it. We go out of our way. The U.S. crushes Brazil's economy in various ways. We, you know, obviously facilitated the arrest of the legitimate and unjust arrest of Lula. Like, I'm fully aware of it. So, you know, I buy food for people all the time. I bought food for a family, like literally like 3 days ago while I was at a restaurant. I bought shoes, groceries for people, things like that. And it's dope, honestly. Like, it's great because, like, you would think that, because they know how they know how America, is, but they never hold Americans accountable for what America, quote unquote, the government does. And that's just like, I wish that Americans had the self-awareness that people in these other countries do. So also I have a podcast coming out, For the People podcast. The only reason it actually hasn't come out yet is mostly because, well, I'm still waiting on my desk and things actually take a little bit longer to get to your house in Brazil, which I'm finding out. So their postal service is actually right on par with the US's. You know, you might get it that day. They might lie and said they tried you and they really didn't. They didn't pull up at all, but, you know, it's what it is. I can't just go to the store. I don't have my car here. So I can't just go to the store and pick it up. So that's what we're going to work with. But yeah, For the People podcast is going to be on Hotspot Media's YouTube. And I'm still on Twitter, obviously, still on TikTok. But yeah, so obviously the election is ramping up, and I'm going to be definitely covering a lot of the election, but mostly from the perspective that I normally cover it in. And I'm definitely going to be calling out a lot of the hypocrisy as usual. But I want to definitely focus more on this. The international stage is like, it's just, for me, I feel like it's not coincidental that the election is happening when the world is fucking burning around us. Like, a lot of this stuff is getting implemented right now. AI, like this damn AI situation is kind of like went from 0 to 100 real quick, and we're all kind of just like acting very casual about shit. I'm on Instagram. I literally was on Instagram the other day, Sab, and I was listening to an AI bot sing other people's songs in Kanye West's voice. Like,
that's scary.
What the fuck, bro? Like, that's not okay. And BuzzFeed just fired a bunch of people, and their stocks went up because of AI, which is, I mean, who the fuck reads BuzzFeed anyway? Whatever, cool. But my point is, if you can fire people and your stocks go up, what does that mean for other companies? What does that mean for other employees? Right? And they're gonna be like, oh, learn how to code. Okay, what happens when AI learns how to code? Yeah. Which I'm sure it does. For the most, obviously it does, or else it wouldn't be able to diminish. So like, these are the chips in the brain whole situation. Like, that's the thing that's happening. The situation with these, like, for example, like at least in Europe, they're putting vaccines in food products without our knowledge and sending them over to the US. Like, that's happening in real time. There are people who have actually been coming up with like remnants, testing pilots for remnants of the COVID vaccine, and they've never taken it. Like, that's been happening recently. So the world is literally burning around us. They're poisoning our food. They're poisoning our minds. I saw this guy, Maj Tour, from Black Guns Matter. He was like, there's really a whole business built around shortening our attention spans. Whether it be from social media, whether it be from work, like, you just get so stressed that you can really only afford the mental and emotional energy to pay attention to something for a small amount of time. Yep. Like, it's sad. So I definitely, I don't think it's coincidence that this election is happening as a bunch of fuckery, excuse my language, is being pushed. And so with my new podcast, my goal is to kind of touch on literally everything and show how it's all interconnected, and to bring attention to it in a way that's hopefully a little bit, lighthearted and fun. But, the situation is dire, right? Like, as much fun as I try to have, the situation is dire, and it's not a game. Like, I wish I could. I literally had this conversation with my mom, and how Black parents are. I forgot, man, you'd be all right, because Black people have damn near seen everything at this point. So it's very hard to scare Black people, right? It is, I'm telling you. But like, now my mom, because now, like, even when she makes a raise, she's losing money. Which is correct. Her medicine costs more, her deductibles cost more, the taxes cost more. Like, she's like really starting to kind of figure out, like, damn, this is a problem. Like, do we have a backup plan? Oldest son comes to the rescue like I normally do, so it's all good. But like, y'all have to teach yourself skills. Y'all need to get yourselves passports. If you like, I don't know how long this American privilege is gonna last, y'all. Right now, you don't need a visa to go to Brazil. You don't need a visa to go to Colombia. You don't need a visa to go to Mexico, Ecuador, places like that. But you will soon, because they know y'all run away. They know y'all are looking to run away, bro. They really do. Like, they're not stupid. Everybody, all the politicians in Central South America rubbing their hands like, oh boy, it's about to get real. There's gonna be a lot of parity when it comes to the economy. Now, it might not be in our lifetime, like the way we like. Well, at least hopefully. And I say hopefully because if it is in our lifetime, America will fucking set this bitch off before they allow that shit to happen. They will start World War III. They're already in the process of doing so. If you know your history, how they started lying about all the things that China's doing, like, oh, it's a balloon. The balloon was fine on it. It's like, no, bitch, no, it wasn't. It was not a balloon. That's what they did to Germany. They did that to Germany in World War I. Like, the Lusitania was a lie. It was a total lie. They do that to set the stage so that they can court approval from you. Now,
y'all have the choice whether or not you want to fight anymore at the end of the day, right? And so y'all have a lot of choices, actually. Y'all have a choice of whether you want to vote. You have a choice of whether or not you want to do direct action and mutual aid. You have a choice of whether or not you want to put up with this shit. So at that point, that's on you. But you got to get off the bench and get in the game somehow, some way. And you'll know how you can do that. And no, I don't mean go sign up for a fucking campaign. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can literally do what Rome did. Go out and buy food for people on the street and hand it out. And somebody's going to see that. They're going to be like, damn, why the hell did I do that? That's not even that expensive. See, I'm going to do the same thing. And then you meet up with other like-minded people. And then y'all start something bigger. That's what we need. Like, we don't need more TikTok stars. We don't need more independent, media people. We got way too many motherfuckers as it is. And most of them are not that good. To be honest with you, most of them are not that good. Everybody ain't RBN. Everybody ain't Niko house or the combo couch. Most of them just fucking talk to hear themselves talk because they're not going to tell y'all the real shit. Like, we could be as big as well, I don't know. I didn't, go steal somebody's wife worth millions of dollars. So maybe you can't be as big as Kyle Kalinske and Crystal, but you can grow. You can grow your network from doing what you're doing as far as mutual aid is concerned, and like make that thing independent media, bro. Make everybody want to compete to be the next best mutual aid networker. That's what we need at the end of the day. So appreciate you, Sabs.
Thanks so much, Niko.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Bye. Okay. Always a good time. Always a good fun time with Niko. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Shout out patrons, and then we'll get into the next news stories. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Niko, I get your telegrams all the time. So when are you and Sabby going to make your debut on Breaking Points? Oh, God. That would be interesting. Dwayne, Donna Brazell verified they cheated. They still are going after Julian Assange. R.I.P. Seth Rich. That's right. Shout out to JB says, hello. Thank you for the super chat, Michael. What happened to Jared and Elizabeth Beck? They seem to have disappeared. I just want to know if they are alive and well. I know their lives are in danger. I have no idea. That is a good question. I'm going to look them up after the show, actually, now that you brought that up. Thank you for the super chat, Rodrigo. Should we just move to Brazil? I always tell people, look, like if you get the opportunity to travel, go see the world, if you can. I think everyone, if they have the opportunity, should live in another country at least for a year or so, just to see what it's like. You might like it better there. Thank you, Sandra, for the super chat. Thank you for covering the DNC lawsuit. I want my Bernie money back. The DNC committed #fraud. I want my money back too. And thank you for this super chat as well. Get treble damages, Niko. Thank you for that as well. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, DC. If the primary is rigged, so is the general. YouTube won't let me say this. Thank you, Niko. Seth Rich and Julian Assange for exposing the truth. RIP Seth Rich. #free Julian Assange. Thank you so much for that. Gonna go ahead and shout out our patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. You know what I say. You keep the lights on around here. Thank you to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker there. And I also want to shout out new Sabby patrons. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Ronell DeMont, Tim Utterback, and Leanne Owen. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your support. Okie doke. What else are we going to talk about tonight? I have some things to tell you tonight. I have some things to talk about Tonight, we are discussing Khanna stocks. Yes, I have new information about that. I know we've talked about this before, but I have new recent information and we're going to dive into that. I'm also going to discuss Macron. Protesters in France call for Macron to retire. I'm going to give you a new update about the protests in France and also the decision of the courts in reference to this pension reform as well. Things are going crazy in France right now. It's worse than it was before. So we're going to get into that. I'm also going to discuss this particular story, which is actually coming out of Massachusetts. The Pentagon suspect. Notice it says under his face, I call BS. I have a reason for that. I'm going to explain to you why I consider this entire thing to be suspect. And of course, Niko House was just here. If you have not done so, go ahead and smash that like button for me. That helps me out with the algo. Thank you so much. Okay. Where do we begin with this story? A couple days ago, I believe it was Sunday, I told you about the Pentagon leaked documents, right? And the information that was believed to be a part of those documents at that point in time. Now, at that time, there were suspicions from CNN commentators, which I played on the show, where they were trying to say that maybe it was Russia who did this. And I was like, really interesting. They had no proof, but they were trying to give the American people that impression. Now, a suspect has been arrested. And I want to be careful here. And I want to make sure I say suspect and allegedly, because I don't really know. But there is something strange about this particular situation. The suspect was here in Massachusetts. Of course, it had to be. I knew it had to be Massachusetts. I knew they had to find somebody here. Lived here in Massachusetts. His name is Jack, or I think it's Jake. Jake Teixeira. I believe that's a Portuguese name based on the way it's spelled. If I'm right, it would be pronounced Teixeira. And I'm saying that because some people had contacted me and they're like, how do you pronounce his name? So I looked at it. I think that is a Portuguese name. So the X would be pronounced like an S. Anywho, 21 years old. 21 years old soldier. He was arrested at his home here in Massachusetts. Now, before I play this clip, I want to go ahead and say this. My spidey senses are going off about this particular event. Something to me just seems to be a little bit off. And I'm going to get into that. Let's get started with this clip here. You'll see they are picking up the suspect here.
There are some pictures there coming in, I believe, showing some of the law enforcement activity there at the family home in Massachusetts, where the arrest was made. This is now obviously in the hands of, there you see the pictures of someone who is being, we believe, to be Teixeira, who is being taken into custody. The FBI was preparing to do this. They had hoped to have a little more time as part of this investigation.
Notice how they have him walking backwards and not forward. You see that? I believe that is a safety precaution.
But the identity of this person was made public by some of the news media reports in the New York Times and, of course, the Washington Post, which has been doing a lot of reporting on this over the last few days, reported on his identity. So I'm told by sources that the investigation kind of accelerated as a result of his identity becoming public. So now we expect that he's going to be taken to a federal court there in Massachusetts, in Boston, where the procedure will begin to remove him and bring him down to the Washington, D.C. area, where we expect that the charges are going to be filed for his connection to the leaking of these documents.
We're going to pause there for a second. I want to point out something that he mentioned, the Washington Post. So they were the ones that apparently outed him, so to speak. But I have questions, and I think you should too. You guys know I came from a military family. I talk about this often on the show. I'm very familiar with how the branches of the military work. And the ranking system, right? Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. But somebody please explain to me how a 21-year-old soldier of the National Guard was able to obtain top secret Pentagon documents. All of you need to ask this question, okay? He wasn't even a lieutenant. He wasn't an officer. He wasn't a colonel. This is a 21-year-old boy, which if I'm doing my estimation correctly, he probably entered the military when he was 18. Even if he entered the military when he was 20, 19, etc., he is a low-ranking soldier. So how does a low-ranking soldier get access to that type of information? Am I really supposed to believe this? Am I really supposed to believe this? Let me tell you what I think is going on. Let me tell you what I think is going on. I think he could be a scapegoat. I think that someone else higher up is actually the person who obtained that information. You cannot sit up here and tell me that someone that is at that low of a rank in the National Guard, they don't even operate Monday through Friday. So let's just put them to the side, okay? They were able to obtain that level of secrecy. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. Something is fishy here about this entire story. Let's go on. I have more to show you.
At this point, there's not a lot we know about the exact charges. We expect we might hear more from the Attorney General and from the Justice Department soon, whenever they decide to make public the charges that are to be announced. But we do know, obviously, that they, as you could hear from that briefing just now at the Pentagon, they're treating this as a criminal matter. They believe that there's some serious national security damage that has been done by the exposure of these documents. The Washington Post said that there's as many as 500 documents that they had seen on various platforms, including on these chat rooms.
21-year-old low-ranking soldier was able to get 500 documents. I don't buy it. I don't buy this. I don't believe it. Something is up. That's right, Steve. Seems very sus. It does not make any sense, guys. The lower the rank, the less access you have in reference to confidential information, top secret information, etc. He's a baby, basically. You're 21 years old in the military. You're a baby. Let's go on.
Discord, which is a gaming platform. And so that's, of course, now in the hands of the Justice Department and prosecutors who are going to be bringing the federal charges against this young man. Again, 21-year-old Jack Teixeira, 21 years old, member of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. Again, those are pictures, we believe, of Teixeira being taken into custody by the FBI and by the investigators there who've been working this case frantically over the last few days.
He shared the information, allegedly, on Discord. Now, if you haven't been on Discord or you're not familiar with how Discord works, on Discord, people can share all kinds of stuff, right? You can be in different rooms in Discord, different servers on Discord. And what I'm wondering is, just because he shared the information on Discord, allegedly, does that actually mean that he's the one that obtained the information originally? If you haven't been on these platforms, I don't even think some of the people, the commentators or the government officials, I don't even think they understand how something like Discord works. Discord is different from a platform like Twitter. Discord, you can have multiple servers on Discord. multiple different rooms on Discord. So what I would want to know is, how do they know for certain that he was the originator? We need to ask these questions. This whole story to me is just a little bit strange. And now that they have a suspect, I feel like the focus is not going to be on the information that was found in those documents. The focus is going to be on the suspect. And so now Americans who are watching mainstream media, their minds are going to turn off to the information that was revealed, and they're going to be focused on the suspect. Similar thing with the Twitter files. Once people started pointing fingers at Matt Taibbi, people's minds turned off the information that Matt Taibbi revealed, and they were just focused on the fact like, oh, Matt Taibbi might be secret right-wing person. This is on purpose, but don't let that happen to you. Make sure you stay focused on the information that was revealed. Let's go on.
Diana, Erica?
Evan, thank you. Stay with us. Also joining us, CNN security correspondent Josh Campbell. Josh, as we look at the way all of this is unfolding, and again, if folks are just joining us, you're looking at these pictures from our affiliates there from just moments ago of Jack Teixeira. We believe this is at the family home in Dayton, Massachusetts, which is in the southern part of the state, just a little bit south of Taunton, Mass. As one of the things that stood out. So
that's close to Rhode Island. That's actually, yeah. That's closer to Rhode Island if he's down in that portion.
We just heard in this Pentagon briefing, there were specific questions about whether certain platforms like Discord are being monitored. How long were these documents out there? And what we heard twice was that, part of what DOD does, they're really monitoring more on an international level, not as much domestically, Josh. So when we look at what is or is not out there, what is your sense of who is monitoring potential activity on these sites that could include sensitive intelligence documents? Do we know?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here comes the push for the federal government to monitor these platforms. Here comes the push to force the hand of politicians in Congress to pass that Restrict Act. Pay attention to what's happening here. Everybody's in on it. Mainstream media is in on this. They want this to happen too, because this is what the State Department wants to happen. Now, the federal government can say, well, you know what? We need to be monitoring these apps like Discord so that something like this never happens again. Oh, and while we're at it, let us go ahead and monitor, we'll continue to monitor Twitter, Facebook. Let us actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and pass that Restrict Act and give us access to all of the internet and the routers in people's homes so we can see who's doing what, when, and where. And when I say that, it almost makes me wonder if this information wasn't leaked on purpose for that very reason. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the GOV. And I don't know where this young man came from, but 21 years old? Come on, man. You got to give me something better than that. Let's go on.
I can tell you, after every major spy case that we've seen arrest in U.S. history, going back to Aldrich Ames in '94, Robert Hansen, who was an FBI agent in 2001, after Chelsea Manning, after Reality Winter, after all of these espionage cases, the government does an after action and tries to determine what were the vulnerabilities. How was this information compromised? And although, this arrest is going down right now, we believe that that is the suspect there on your screen. The spy hunters are obviously celebrating that this person is now been taken into custody. They are preparing themselves for the accusations, the ridicule, the criticism that's to come, and that is, how could this information be compromised? And it gets exactly to what you were just saying there, as far as the systems, what monitoring is being done, what tripwires are out there. And so again, the good news for the spy hunters is that this person is now in custody, but they have a lot of work to do to determine what best practices may have been violated, what new best practices may need to be implemented.
We need to chime in here for just a second. They have not figured out how the information was obtained. They're arresting the suspect. That doesn't seem odd to you guys? This whole thing to me, it doesn't feel right. Like I told you, like the spidey senses, they're going off. It's very strange, very bizarre. But they don't know. They can't even tell you how the information was obtained to begin with. But the Washington Post has revealed that it was him. Let's go on.
As we look at this video, I do want to point out one thing. You know, those watching may be wondering, well, why this overwhelming show of force here, where you have FBI tactical agents who are now taking someone into custody who isn't accused of a violent act. This person accused of disclosing information improperly. FBI agents, as they prepare their arrest plan, they will work to determine, gather every piece of intelligence that they can as they assess, is this a dangerous person? We know from that stunning Washington Post report recently that the individual who led this group on this platform, who we believe to be this air guardsman who's now been taken into custody, had...
They believe to be. This is why I continue to say allegedly.
Talked about being a gun enthusiast, had been at gun ranges. He's obviously a member of the military. And so the FBI is factoring that into their determination about what type of force you bring to this residence in order to take this person into custody. As we saw at the beginning of the video, this arrest obviously taking place outside. And this is very much textbook. The FBI operators there want to control the situation. They don't want to rush up to the house and rush up to the suspect. What you saw in that video is the FBI agents commanding that officer, that suspect, right there, calling him back to the vehicle. You can see the agents there safely tucked behind that up-armored Bearcat. They're bringing the suspect to them. They have control of the situation. You see that his hands are on top of his head. That obviously, so he doesn't try to, reach for a weapon. They need to ensure that he's secured. And so we're seeing that very textbook. They have the indication that this person may own a gun, may be a gun enthusiast. They don't want to take any chances. And then we move to the next step. That home.
I want you to think about what he just said. May own a gun, may be a gun enthusiast. He's in the military. Come on, guys, really? He's in the military. Now, there's more I want to talk about in reference to this particular story, because like I said, something is rotten in Denmark. Now, Glenn Greenwald had something to say about this as well. He was on Tucker Carlson recently. And I think what I noticed too is like Glenn can see right through the cloud, can see right through it. Shout out to Case Study QB for this clip. You guys need to see this because there's something that Glenn Greenwald points out here about this particular situation as well. And you might want to look at Washington Post with a side eye. There's something off here. This whole thing to me is just weird. Listen to this.
Personal. He's the host of System Update on Rumble. He broke, of course, the most famous leaking story in American history, the story of Ed Snowden. He joins us tonight. Glenn, thanks so much for coming on. I should say, and I'll just be quiet and let you speak since you know this better than anyone, but we left out a lot of details that are being reported in the Washington Post, the New York Times, et cetera, tonight about the leaker and where this all came from. Because honestly, I don't believe anything. And it's very hard to know what's true. We're all being spun. We're all being lied to. And we just didn't want to repeat the lies. So with that, what do you make of this?
I can't think of an incident, Tucker, that reveals more vividly the real function of our nation's largest media corporations than what just happened here. If you're a real journalist, somebody who's devoted to transparency, shining a light on the most powerful government actors when they lie to the American people and informing the public, you would be celebrating this person who stepped forward and risked his security to show his fellow citizens that the government was lying about this incredibly important war with a nuclear armed power, that we have actual troops deployed on the ground in Ukraine. There's going to be no diplomatic resolution through at least 2023, that Zelensky is planning on using our weapons to strike deep into Russia, which we were told would never happen, risking escalation. He did the job of what journalists claim to do, which is show the public the truth.
And the Washington Post, in turn, decided to rat him out to the authorities. They decided to play cop. And I'm glad that Glenn brought it back to the information that was revealed, because that is the important piece. You see, they had to get someone, right? Not, again, allegedly, we don't know for sure, allegedly, but they had to get someone quickly, because if they didn't get someone quickly, then that gives more time for people to focus on the information that was revealed. And there's no question. I mean, we don't know how many people saw this information. There's a lot of people on Discord. And one of the articles that I read on Sunday said it was also spread on Telegram. There's a lot of people on Telegram. But now that they have a suspect, now the focus for a lot of mainstream media, if you look this up right now, the focus is on the individual, not the information that was revealed. Notice in the CNN clip I played you, they didn't really talk about the information that was revealed. They focused on the suspect. Let's go on.
If you work for the intelligence agencies, you would be furious at this person. You would hate him because he revealed that you just lied. He exposed the truth about what you were doing. What's amazing is the New York Times, the Washington Post, all the people who were at that Pentagon briefing today think the way the CIA and the Pentagon think. They hate this person. It was the New York Times and the Washington Post that did the FBI's work and found the leaker and led the FBI to him.
They snitched. They're a rat.
They're demanding that he be punished. They're demanding that the government clamp down and keep things more and more secret. What kind of journalist would ever do that, would want to see a leaker exposed and punished and then demand that the government keep even more secret? But that is what these media corporations are there to do. They love leaks. When the CIA and Homeland Security tell them to leak, that's when they disseminate propaganda in the public, like they did during the Trump years when they leaked the transcript between Michael Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak, the most serious kind of leaking crime. The Washington Post did that. Nobody looked for that leaker. Nobody cared. Everybody cheered because it served the interests of the security state. But when it comes to transparency that undermines the agenda of these agencies and that proves to the American people what the truth is, it's amazing that these journalists are on the side of the government and will actually hunt down the leaker and demand that he be punished even more.
They are on the side of the government because they repeat the State Department talking points. We are living in a very scary time when an outlet like the Washington Post would basically do the FBI's job for them. What is happening here, people? What is happening here? You can't trust them. The mainstream, I told you, you cannot trust the mainstream journalist. You can't trust it.
I just don't understand how any journalist could collaborate in hiding the fact that we're in a direct hot war with Russia. Maybe you support that, maybe you don't. But how could you hide something that significant, the most significant fact of our generation, from the public? How could you do that?
And one of the things that was revealed is that they were saying that Zelensky was going deep into Russia territory, which was not supposed to happen. So I don't know. Someone was asking this question. LB, will the leaker be charged with the Espionage Act? That's a good question. We'll have to wait and see. That's the first thing that came to my mind, actually, when I heard about they caught the suspect here.
The only answer is that you don't actually have a journalistic mindset, that you far more identify with your job as working for the government than working for the American people. If you look at the history of the most important journalism stories, it's exactly insiders like Daniel Ellsberg sees that the government is lying to the American people about the war in Vietnam, saying we're winning when in reality, privately, they're saying we're losing. And he goes and he shows the American people the truth. Or Edward Snowden, who heard James Clapper falsely deny the NSA was spying on American people. He had the evidence in his hand and he risked his security to show the truth. Same things WikiLeaks did. This is what you celebrate in journalism. Our journalists, meaning the media corporations, hate this because they actually work for their government. That is their true allegiance.
Exactly. Imagine if Glenn Greenwald, in the beginning, when he got that information from Edward Snowden, imagine if instead of publishing the story, imagine if Glenn Greenwald turned Edward Snowden in to the US government. That's how I want you to picture this, people. Like, what the fuck? Let's go on. We'll finish up here.
You have to defend truth tellers. You cannot abet lying. If you have an entire country based on lies, it just does not end well. You have to tell the truth. I think you're certainly a living example of that. Glenn Greenwald, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tucker.
Carrie said Sabby news networks like institutions are funded by the government. They are all CIA assets. There you go. There you go. So you just can't trust it. You can't trust this information. Now, some people are saying, well, that's their job as a journalist. As a journalist, it's not your job to turn people in, though. You're supposed to cover the story. Now, I told you that this is actually going to be used as an excuse to push something like the Restrict Act. Call my bluff. Exclusive. The Biden administration is looking at expanding how it monitors social media sites and chat rooms after U.S. intelligence failed to realize classified Pentagon documents circulated online for weeks. You guys see what they're trying to do? They are looking at expanding how it monitors social media sites and chat rooms. And this is the reason why some people are saying, or some people believe, what if this was all done on purpose? As an excuse for them to push that Restrict Act through. They want to watch us. They want to see what we're doing. They want to see what we're saying. Didn't Edward Snowden reveal this to people? They want to see what we're doing. They want to be able to look in our homes. It's scary. There's no such thing as privacy in this country. I want to be real. Soon as you think you're not being watched, all of a sudden something shows up on your phone that you were just talking to your friend about. But this is a big red flag. U.S. may change how it monitors the web after missing leaked documents. See, this is what I was talking about. There you go. So you let me know if you know of a 21-year-old, pretty much entry-level soldier for the National Guard of all places. Let me know if you think they're able to get access to top secret information at the Pentagon. I'm not here to tell you that what they're saying is 100% false. But what I am trying to show you is that even you need to question the narrative. Let me go to some of the comments and we'll get to the next story. I tell you. Thank you for the super chat, Sean. Dim Outsider Book Tour, SZN, FK, RFK2. SZN. I don't know what SZN is, but thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Sabby, stop hiding these people in your basement. Anybody in my basement. Thank you for the super chat, Natalie. It's a psyop to manufacture consent for Restrict Act. There you go. That's my belief. That's my belief. I don't trust it. Season. Okay, thank you, Sebastian. Guys, and I don't know like these little abbreviations and stuff like that. All right, we're going to get into our next story. And speaking of questioning the narrative, I believe it was a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the fact that Khanna has said multiple times that he does not trade stocks. We actually showed that there were stocks in his name. And when he was questioned about it on Twitter, he deleted the response, the person who asked him that question, and had a screenshot. We showed that on the show. Now there's more information about stock trading. Again, this is under his name. Take a look at this. Now, this is Capital Trades. You guys know I always tell you to follow the money, right? That's what we're going to do. Listen to this. Moderna stock slips away. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on tonight. Moderna stock slips as early flu jab data disappoints. Now, that's not what I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on this piece right about here. The portfolio update comes at a time of underperformance in Moderna shares. The stock is down 13% year to date, with the investors now shifting their focus towards the next week when Moderna and Merck are due to update the public on a jab against melanoma cancer. In the meantime, Representative Khanna remains an active trader of Moderna shares. Most recently, the congressman sold some shares of Moderna in February after mostly buying the stock over the course of 2022. Let's go to his portfolio right over here. Again, there's his name. Now, again, he still says these are his wife's stocks. But if that's the case, then why did he delete the reply tweet that asked him about this with the screenshot of the stocks? Why did he delete it? Let's go on. 13,533 trades, 1,248 issuers. The volume is 225.39 million. Last traded March 31st, 2023. Here are the trades over here. All you have to do is hover over the lines to see the amount. And you can see 12 filings, 5,611 trades for this particular one. There's the volume, 811 users. I mean, if you just look down, let me zoom out a little bit so I can see. You can see all of these. Let me zoom out a little bit. Look at this. Gartner Inc., Alphabet Inc., that's Google. Remember, Alphabet Inc., when we looked at Open Secrets, that's also one of Khanna's donors, right? It's not a PAC, though. This is how they can say they're still grassroots. This isn't a PAC. But that is one of his donors. Those are individual donations from Alphabet Group. And he sold stock. I told you, follow the money. Wells Fargo. Gartner Inc. again. Here's the dates. Block Inc. American Tower Corp. There's one I saw down here that I really want to scream about. And that's JP Morgan Chase & Co. JP Morgan. So even though Khanna may not take PAC money, look at what he's doing, though. He's still in with the banks. So you see that. And by the way, if you ever want to look this up, you can change the politician. You can change it. You can select politicians, trades, issuers, states, committees. You can change the company, right? But we're looking at Khanna now because this is his particular profile. Now, let's go to another one. Micron. Micron posts best day in a year as Samsung cuts DRAM output. Again, with this particular article, I just want you to focus on one piece right here. Shares of the company fell roughly 50% in 2022 as the company fights massive memory market downturn. The stock is now working to print new 8-month highs as it tests the resistance around $65 a share. Congressman Khanna was trading the Macron stock in recent months as investors look to position themselves ahead of a potential bottom in the memory market downturn. See, again, it's in his name. Thank you, Nikolai DRAM. Thank you. Thank you so much. I see some of the comments. It's funny. But again, his name is here. I didn't write this article. I don't work at Capital Trades. This didn't come from me. Now, again, here's the Macron information. Let me see if it'll take me back to, when I click here, it might take me back to the other one. Yeah, that's not what I want to do. Let's go back. For Macron, you can see that he bought, I wish if I made it bigger, it didn't, did it get rid of it when I did it that way? Oh, here we go. For Macron, you can see he bought stock March 2nd this year. Let's go down. He sold stock January 30th and January 9th this year. Again, he keeps saying these are his wife's stocks, but it's his name. And if you believe him that these aren't his, then ask Khanna, why did he delete the tweet where someone on Twitter pointed this out? That was a different stock, by the way. That was Silicon Valley Bank. There, he got stocks all over the place. So here's my thing. Do I think it's right for a congressman and congresswomen to buy and trade stocks? No, I don't. But I will say this. Unlike Khanna, at least Nancy Pelosi is willing to admit it. She don't hide it. She doesn't lie about it. Khanna out here lying. Look, that's him. I mean, what am I supposed to do with this information? You know, all these people interviewing Khanna, they asking him about this? This is a problem. And my thing is, if you're doing it, just say you're doing it. They publish this information. I think there's another one that was just sent to me too. Let me go ahead and bring that one up. There's another one. This one came to me, I think, right before, or I saw it like right before I went live. This one involves healthcare. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Let me go to it. Yep. All right, I got it. Here's another one. I'm going to share it over here. Whee! All right. All right, this one. Check this one out. So Catalent drops on warning productivity issues will hurt sales. Again, one thing I want to point out from this article right here. Catalent shares have enjoyed a strong start to the year. Congress members Khanna, Susie Lee, Kurt Schrader, so it's three of them, were all trading the stock in the last 12 months. Earlier this week, Khanna disclosed that he sold some Catalent shares at the end of March 2023, therefore avoiding a more than 20% drop in the share price, which threatens to single-handedly erase almost all year-to-date gains. So Khanna, Susie Lee, and Kurt Schrader, all Congress members. So, I mean, let's scroll down. I'll make sure I got the whole thing. Like, this is a problem. Like, I don't know what else to tell people, but this information is out there and people need to talk about it. It's just like, I interviewed Khanna one time. I didn't know about this at that point in time. Till after that, I was like, oh shoot, I should ask him about that. I haven't interviewed him since. I don't plan on it because I know Khanna's, he's a fraud. And my whole thing is that I don't want him to try to sell that information to people. So Catalent, this is a drug manufacturer. Catalent is a drug manufacturer. So it says drug manufacturer, CTLT shares plunge over 25% as it warns of lower FQ3 revenues due to productivity issues and cost at its largest facilities. Ro Khanna, Susie Lee, and Representative Schrader were trading the stock in the last 12 months. So if Ro Khanna is supposed to be for Medicare for all, why is he trading stocks of a drug manufacturer? What does that tell you? That tells you, and some people don't like to hear this, but whatever. That tells you that even if Ro Khanna became president, as much as he likes to say that he's for Medicare for all, even if he became president in 2028, he's probably not going to push for it. Follow the money. Follow the money. Sebastian says, remember, this man calls himself a progressive. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. His name is not Ro Khanna, Sab. It's Ro Koop Khanna. Okay. Ro Koop Khanna. Ian says legalized insider trading. Gamer says Ro Khan man is in it for the money. There you go. Now we are going to go to our last story here, which is probably one of the bigger stories of the night, which is the update about the protests in France. Things got real last night. We're going to get into this. Shout out to Case Study QB for this particular clip. For those who are not aware, the High Court in France has decided to side with President Macron in reference to the pension reform. Now, obviously, the protesters in France were not happy with that at all. And you would think that would send them home. It has not. Instead, it made them even more fiery. First, I want to show you this clip here, which is the day before that ruling was decided.
France bracing for a 12th day of strike action and protest this morning. Up to 600,000 people are expected to take to the streets again, denouncing the government's pension reforms.
Notice how she said the word again. She said it in a negative way. Again, that's a negative. There's a negative tone with that, the way that she said it, almost in a way for her to say it's ridiculous that it's still happening without saying those words. The numbers are deflated. I talked to people in France. The numbers are deflated. She said hundreds of thousands. They had millions of people in the streets. So just pay attention to that.
This comes ahead of a ruling on Friday on the constitutionality of the divisive law. That law, to remind you, raising the retirement age by 2 years to 64 years old. CNN's Saskia Van Doorn joins us live from Paris. I mean, compared to the rest of Europe and, of course, the United States, that is a very generous, even that higher retirement age is very generous. But this is something that has really sparked outrage on the streets of Paris. What's the mood in the city this morning?
Well, Christine, I'd say that the mood is one of determination, and really it's now gotten bigger than the pension reform, right? So, yes, they're angry with the pension reform. Yes, they're angry at the way that it was ran through Parliament, but they are particularly angry with one person, and that is French President Emmanuel Macron.
Told you.
Anger on the streets of France. Macron resign. Protesters all united against a defiant president.
If you want the pact between generations to be fair, this reform needs to be carried out.
Pension reforms were a landmark policy of President Emmanuel Macron's re-election campaign, but upping the retirement age from 62 to 64 may have been a step too far for too many. Forcing the bill past one of the two parliamentary chambers, pouring fuel on the fire of popular anger.
See, that part should have never happened. That piece right there where he forced the bill in the parliament, that should have never happened. That's what started all of this in the first place.
Much of that ire has come Macron's way.
Guys, look. Oh my God.
Much of that ire has come Macron's way.
Now it is really against denunciation of the president himself. I don't think in the history of the Fifth Republic we have seen so much rage, so much hatred at our president.
With most French people polled supporting the protests, his approval ratings are nearly the lowest of his 2 terms, at just 28% in March. It was only worse during the Yellow Vest protests. 4 years ago, popularity at rock bottom, hundreds of thousands in the streets weekly. For Macron, the Yellow Vests protesting what they called economic injustices upset his first term. He now faces a similar risk.
Yeah, we have to remember, I've mentioned the yellow vest on here before, but we do have to remember that that was also during Macron's term. So here we go again. That's right, .com, 600,000 protesters. Yeah, they're deflating the numbers. If you talk to people in France, they'll tell you.
Deficit balancing move slammed by many as tone deaf will face its final hurdle here Friday, France's equivalent of the Supreme Court. It will either rubber stamp it or deem that some parts or indeed the whole thing is unconstitutional, which would be a further embarrassment for President Macron. For the young reformer, pensions were supposed to be the first of several policy revamps, but his crusade of government reform now looks dead in the water, with little hope of energizing lawmakers behind yet more controversial policy rethinks. And his legacy may be even more troubled, opening the door to the far right.
The comparison with Barack Obama applies. He is paving the way to the coming to power of a populist leader. And
everyone, please listen to what he says here. He is going to make the comparison of Macron's mistakes with Obama's mistakes. Listen to this. This is a warning here.
More troubled, opening the door to the far right.
The comparison with Barack Obama applies. He is paving the way to the coming to power of a populist leader.
Did everybody hear what he just said? Because he is ignoring the will and the needs of the people, he is paving the way for someone to become a leader of France who is further to the right. Remember how we've been saying this for quite some time. Obama gave us Donald Trump. The same thing could happen in France because Macron is ignoring the people, the pain and suffering from the people. And this gentleman here, Dominique, who's a political expert, even he recognizes it. He sees it. He sees what is coming. If Macron doesn't bend his knee, that is his prediction as to what will happen in France politically after Macron. The world is watching. Let's go on.
And he will be remembered in history as the man who allowed Marine Le Pen to finally come to power.
With 4 years remaining in his term as president, we may still not know the true cost of Macron's hunger for reform for quite a while.
Now, Christine, protests are already underway in cities like Rennes, Marseille, Toulouse, and we expect to see 11,000 police officers deployed across France. According to police intelligence, we will see once again that kind of radical fringe, that violent minority taking part in the protests. So we can expect scuffles later on today, but on the whole, these protests will undoubtedly be peaceful, just for a few thousand or 2,000 violent protesters that will, as I said, create scuffles later on today. Christine?
Yeah, we certainly hope it mostly remains peaceful. Saskia, thank you so much.
Manufacturing consent, they do not approve. Mainstream media does not approve of these protests that are happening in France right now. You can tell by the tone of their voice. I've been covering this for the past 4 or 5 weeks now. I had a story about this the past 4 or 5 weeks. I don't know. I feel like it's been a while since I've been covering this, but there's more here. because unfortunately, the High Court in France has decided that they are going to side with Macron. Obviously, the protesters did not like that. And I want to show you what their response has been since that decision was made. Now, this is Bernie's tweets, different Bernie, not Bernie Sanders. You need to follow her on Twitter. She has a lot of these videos in reference to the protests. Now, Bernie said, France breaking the constitutional, a court has sided with Macron against the people, almost as if the people's voices no longer matter. Here's what the people had to say after the court ruling. I have several clips to show you, so get comfy. All right, so they're back out in the streets. They have their song. I love that they have their songs during their protests, but there's more. When I told you that France is burning, I meant exactly just that. But it's burning even more now. Now, there's more fires in the streets. The people are just saying, no, Macron, we are not giving in. Look at this. Just in the middle of the streets. Fire's just burning right in the middle of the street. Watch the guy who walks by. I don't know if I showed him yet. There he goes. Wait. Oh, let me come back. This guy right here. He's just crossing the street. Just an average day in France. He's just crossing the street. Things are literally on fire. Now, that's one of them. There are many more. There are a couple more here. This is probably one of the most shocking ones. Guys, they burned down one of the police stations. I kid you not. France. All over France, the people are responding to the court's decision. This is the police station in Reims. I hope I pronounced that correctly. There's no sanctuary for tyrants here. And you'll be able to see it says police when I zoom in on it. You'll see here. Look at this. See, it says police right there. There's the sign right there. So they set the police station on fire. These protests are not just happening in Paris. Some of the mainstream media outlets are phrasing it that way. These protests are happening all across the country. So in this location, they set the police station on fire. Like, just imagine this. Look. What's the song? The roof is on fire. The roof is on fire. We don't need no water. I don't know what happened to the police, but their police station is burning down. Like, the people are not having this. They don't care. They don't care what Macron said. They don't care what the High Court said. The people are not having it. And they also stormed the LVMH headquarters in Paris. Now, that's Louis Vuitton. I believe that's also Hennessy. All of those are combined. I believe that's LVMH is Louis Vuitton and Hennessy. I forget what the M stands for, but I do know they have that brand together. So now LVMH headquarters in Paris have been stormed by protesters. Fury on the streets. the day before the court decision. I told you, they're not having it. They're like, nah, Louis got to go too. Because Louis has a lot of money. Thank you, Wary. Louis Vuitton, Moet, and Hennessy. Yeah. So the M is Moet. That was the piece I forgot. But Rondo said not the Hennessy. Listen, these people have a lot of money. The people, like the CEOs of these companies, they have a lot of money. This is what I love about the protest in France. They went right to the source of the problem. They went to BlackRock, and now they're going to Louis Vuitton, Moet, and Hennessy. These people have a lot of money. He's got a camera. They're like, no, let us in. We're coming in. Jeez. They're not quitting here. They're not quitting. And you got to give them props for it. What's this, Giovanni? LMVH owns Valentino, Gucci, Moet, Chardon. Okay. That's good to know. Giovanni, are you in Italy? I think I asked you this question before, Giovanni. I think you are in Italy or something like that. I think that's what you told me. But there's more. But wait, it gets worse. Apparently, Emmanuel Macron was not greeted too nicely when he returned from China. Apparently, one of the protesters lunged at him. Watch this. This is Macron returning. Oh, this is actually in the Netherlands. I'm sorry. A protester lunged at him in the Netherlands. Listen to this. Watch. They'll show a close-up in a second. They don't even look, the Dutch don't like him, boo. Even in the Netherlands, they don't like him. The police got him there. Macron was about to enter the University of Amsterdam when the man ran towards him. See? So he is not a well-liked individual. I believe it was last year when someone slapped him in the face. I think that happened last year. People are not feeling the Macron. But the French people, you got to give them their props, guys. They are not giving up. And they don't care what the high court said. They don't care what Macron said. They know that they are larger in numbers. Where is it going to go from here? I don't know. I don't know. But if I was Macron, it might be best for him to resign. And you notice in the first video, the CNN clip, they said the protesters were calling on him to resign. I think he should resign at this point. Maybe he needs to step down. I don't know. But because he is ignoring the needs and the will of the people, that political expert was correct. He is making the same mistake that Obama made, and it paves the way for someone on the populist right to come in and win. We got to pay attention. Carrie said, meanwhile, in America, it's crickets, and they changed hours to 67. Dwayne said, Macron is toast. And he's out here telling, he made a good statement recently. I gave him credit for making the statement where he said that, Europe shouldn't follow the U.S. lead in reference to China and Taiwan, and Europe should try to be its own third power. I totally understand that. But at the same time, Macron can't even figure out shit in his own country. And he's trying to tell an entire continent of people what they should and should not do. At the same time, he told political leaders in Africa that they needed to pick a side in reference to Russia and Ukraine. He told them that they need to pick a side in this. They can't remain neutral. So I don't know. He's all over the place. That's why I tried to tell you guys. He's all over the place. I think he likes to listen to himself speak. Oh, man. All right, guys. I am about to head out. I will not be here tomorrow, obviously, live tomorrow, but I will upload clips like I usually do. And then I will be back live on Sunday. So look forward to that. I think I told you guys, if you didn't hear yesterday, I am going to try to cover RFK Jr.'s presidential announcement Wednesday morning. I'm going to be on the ground for that. So hopefully you'll get to see that as well. One thing about me, I'm not MSNBC, so I'm not going to cut away from people's speeches when they're speaking. I'm being silly now. I'm being silly. Okay, guys. Clifford said Macron gonna be out on his Oh, Macron. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight. I am heading out. Have a good weekend, guys. Have a good night. I almost forgot. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.